We are in a rainy Athens, Georgia for the first time this season, and it's going to be a good one today. A top 10 matchup between number 2 Georgia and number 9 Ole Miss. This one has huge playoff implications. UGA can clinch a spot in the SEC championship with a win tonight, and of course we get 2 of the best quarterbacks in the country. Carson Beck versus Jaxson Dart. We'll talk about that matchup and so much more happening on this college football Saturday. Welcome to Countdown to Game Day, presented by Dr. Pepper. Christine Williamson here with 2 Harrys, Harry Lyles and Harry Douglas. It's a little wet out here, guys.
Yeah, it ain't dry.
Yeah, I don't think it's a little either.
Yeah,
it's definitely wet out here.
It's a lot of wet. So we're excited about talking about this matchup, obviously, and so many other things happening on this college football Saturday. But before we get to that, something huge happened this week. It's been happening over the last few weeks, and we have an update out of Michigan. So let's talk about that. So starting with the fact that Michigan was mid-flight on their way to Happy Valley, Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti suspended Jim Harbaugh for the remainder of the regular season under a violation of Big Ten sportsmanship policy. The Big Ten claimed this is not a sanction of Coach Harbaugh, but rather a sanction against the university and Harbaugh, who embodies the university for purposes of its football program. Last night, Michigan filed a temporary restraining order, which would allow a judge to stop the suspension. Harry Douglas, what is your reaction to everything that we found out over the last week?
My first reaction is that this is the start of something that's going to, I think, become bigger, right? When you have Tony Petitti, the Big Ten Commissioner, suspending Jim Harbaugh for the next 3 regular season games, and then you have Harbaugh and company filing an injunction,
right?
Basically, a temporary restraining order. It's a whole lot of mess that is just going to begin, and we thought we had a lot up until this point.
Yep.
No, things are actually just getting started. Now, I would say this: they haven't found any evidence that Jim Harbaugh actually knew of what was going on. The only thing I would say is that as a leader of a program, a leader of an organization, you're responsible for everything that goes on in your program. They gave him 3 games. What I'm glad they didn't do was hurt the kids, right? These young kings, these young queens that work on the staff. These people still have an opportunity to play for and contend for a national championship. So I'm glad they did not take that away from them. I think personally, if you really wanted to hurt Michigan and get them in the proper manner, you hit them with a healthy financial fine.
Yep.
And also, if you wanted to, take away scholarships. Now, that's not Tony Petitti's job as a Big Ten commissioner. That would have to come from the NCAA, though.
Yep.
But I'm glad they're still able to contend and compete for a national championship, because I think Michigan is the most complete team in college football. And no one can convince me that a sign-stealing scandal allowed them to thump and rump everybody that they played on their schedule. And we can't have people talking out the sides of their mouths saying that Michigan doesn't have a tough schedule, but then at the same time, you're saying that they needed a sign-stealing scandal to beat the opponents that they've beaten so far.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, so one of the things about this that I think, and HD, you've talked to coaches about this too, is that this does seem like something that is that is out of the ordinary. Like, this is different than, because you talked about, I mean, HD, you played, the sign stealing, that happens everywhere. That's not uncommon. But the common thread in talking to coaches has been, this is out of the ordinary. So because of that, I do understand that them wanting to do something, but I will say the thing that kind of got me about the suspension is it seems like he's trying to, walk a line, basically, to try to say, hey, we are punishing you, but we're kind of not, because you get to be at practice all week. Yeah. Football coaches and their schedules, because I do the Thursday night games, they move those schedules back days because they are so on schedule, inappropriate for how they go about their weeks. Games are not just won on Saturdays. They are won on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I understand Tony Petitti wanting to act quick. I think my only issue with this is you have to let the investigative process go through. But I'm with you. I think the most important thing was the fact that they did not punish these players for something that was out of their control.
Yeah, it's huge. Obviously, the biggest story happening in college football right now. So we'll keep you updated with that one as we possibly can. All right, we like to start every show with 3 big things. I talk with my hands.
You do?
Lyles, you start us off with what you're looking forward to or what you saw last week?
So my big thing for this week is my big thing from week one, basically. I want to see something out of Oregon and Bo Nix this week. Now, week one is a different story because they were playing Portland State. I'm like, hey, I need you guys to drop 80 on them, and they basically did, right? And Bucky Irving had 4 carries for 119 yards. Like, that game looked like what it needed to look like for a team where, hey, if we think you're going to be a playoff contender, you need to blow this team out the water, and they did. This game today is a little bit different. You're playing a better opponent. You're playing USC. I still think, based on what we've seen from this Oregon team, which we have felt like the past few weeks, right, HD, even though they're number 6, they have looked like one of the 4 best teams in the country. Now, and I say that they're properly ranked. Don't trip. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have their loss, and they will get back. But this USC team has made every single team that they've played look offensively dominant. And Oregon is offensively dominant no matter who they're playing. So they need to have another big performance like that. They need to come out here. They need to beat them more handily than Washington did. Yep. This is not a 52-42 situation. Their defense is better. I think you'll see that from Oregon today.
All right, we'll see how that matchup goes. HC, what do you got for this week?
So before I start off with my big thing, I want to give a ton of love to all the veterans out there. Today is Veterans Day. My grandfather, Harry Douglas Jr., was in Vietnam. My great-grandfather, Harry Douglas Sr., was in World War II. But I wanted to make sure I gave a ton of love to all the veterans out there, and we have to keep making sure our veterans are okay, and also keep shining light on what they did and how they served this country. Now, my big thing this week is going to be Jalen Milroe. And you talk about adversity, and if there was a picture of the definition of it right now currently, he will be that picture in the dictionary because things didn't start out great for him. Had a bad game versus Texas Longhorns. They lost, got benched, didn't murmur, didn't complain, faced adversity, was a great teammate. Nick Saban went back to him. But the way he has been able to grow throughout this entire process has been remarkable in my opinion. And the way that he approached everything also tells you that he's a stand-up young man. So looking forward to watching Jalen Milroe the rest of the way throughout this college football season. Alabama's right in the thick of things. They have an opportunity to contend week in and week out. They make the SEC championship game. Anything can happen there. And then we talked about the college football playoffs. Anything can happen if you get into the dance. You have a chance. So Jalen Milroe, like what I'm seeing from you, young man.
Yeah, it's been certainly really great to watch him grow over the course of the season. All right, 2 things that I want to mention for my big thing. Number 1, Courtney Andrews, shout out to you for holding my umbrella. The second thing is something that Heather Dinich reported on yesterday, so I'm going to read this verbatim. It has to do with the 12-team playoff format that we're looking forward to next season. So the College Football Playoff Management Committee has agreed upon a new model that will reward the 5 highest-ranked conference champions and the next 7 highest-ranked teams in the 12-team format that will begin next season. That was confirmed to ESPN on Friday. The 5+7 model, which was agreed upon at Thursday's in-person meeting in Dallas, is a change from the previous 6+6 and still requires unanimous approval from the 11 presidents and chancellors who control the CFP. Now, this obviously changing a little bit because of the conference realignment and everything that's happening with the Pac-12. There's only 2 teams in it, so it's been very interesting to watch that change. But I think it'll be very fun to see how everything plays out, and especially with all the parity that we've had this college football season. I think it'd be so interesting this year if we had a 12-team playoff. It'd be so fun, but unfortunately we don't get that. We'll see what happens and how that ends up playing out. All right. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup. Obviously, one that all eyes are on. We got Ole Miss here at a nice and wet Athens, Georgia. By the way, it's supposed to be raining all day today. That's at 7 p.m. on ESPN tonight. Georgia and Ole Miss play for the first time since 2016 when the Rebels handed Kirby Smart a 31-point loss in his first season as the Dogs head coach. Also the first time since Ole Miss has been to Athens since 2012. HD, what kind of challenge do you think that Ole Miss's offense presents to Georgia?
Now, let me say this. Kirby Smart, the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, he is a disciple of Nick Saban. Some of the things, offenses that have given those type of defenses problems, tempo. If you're Ole Miss, I want to up things. I want to move fast. I want to go fast. I don't want to allow the defense of Georgia to get set. I don't want those guys to be able to sub in and out. I want to get them tired, try to wear them down. Also, when you look at the quarterback position, Jaxson Dart is a dual-threat quarterback. I look at the game versus Auburn. Those quarterbacks who had the ability to run the football actually gave Georgia in this defense problems. Next, I will go to Quinshon Judkins. He's one of the best running backs in the country. That ground game, especially today, it's raining, it's wet. They're going to have to be efficient doing that. Last but not least, Trey Harris. Oh, my God. Did y'all see him last week with the one-handed catch? he almost made that boy bad. But he's had his 3 best games last week versus Texas A&M, versus LSU, and also Auburn. All those things are going to have to go right for Ole Miss today if they want an opportunity to win this game versus number 2 Georgia.
Okay, let's talk about Georgia's offense a little bit because they obviously have been missing Brock Bowers, but somehow Georgia's offense and Carson Beck have figured things out. What exactly have you seen out of their offense? What is making them successful?
Hey, America, Carson Beck is better than y'all giving him credit for.
True.
All right, like can we
say it louder for the people in the back that didn't hear you.
Carson Beck is better than y'all are giving him credit for. Now, he is not Caleb Williams, right? He's not Bo Nix. He's not Michael Penix, and that's fine. But in these 2 games where we've been asking, hey, like, what is this Georgia offense going to look like without Brock Bowers? He's completing 67% of his passes. He's thrown for almost 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, right? That is what gets games done. They're not turning the football over. Ladd McConkey has been back. He has been great in his return. People forgot about him. He was a key piece of this team last year. The key, though, to this one is going to be Ole Miss's defense. When they force 2 turnovers or more, they're only giving up 17 points. If they don't force any turnovers, they're giving up 33. So, to me, as long as this Georgia offense protects the football and do what they've been doing the last couple of weeks, I think that they're going to be in business. But another key, HD, as you mentioned, the pace of this Ole Miss offense, that to me is the way. If they can wear down this Georgia defense, you have to sort of hope for that because this is still a very skilled and bunched group of guys that are going to be playing on Sunday.
And lastly, I add this. It's time for that head coach of Ole Miss to win the big game.
Yeah, for sure.
Man. This is the big game.
Right.
It's time for you to win one.
Hey, he was talking spicy before that Alabama game and went out there and threw up a dub.
And it wasn't spicy. By the way, Kirby Smart has not beaten Ole Miss. That's the one team in the SEC that he has not beaten. So it is a very interesting matchup in that regard as well. Let's go over to the Big Ten, shall we? We've talked about this team all morning, all week. But let's talk about them on the football field. Noonan, Happy Valley. The much talked about Wolverines get their first real test of the season to the top 3 defenses in the country. Plus, both of these teams average 40 points per game. That is Penn State and Michigan. HD, on paper, 2 very similar teams. What are the differences between these 2?
I think it's 2 things. For Michigan, I'm going to go with the quarterback position. When you look at Drew Allard, you also look at J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy is in the Heisman Trophy race right now. And he's playing remarkable football across the board. He is a dual threat guy, can get it done with his arm. The play action for Michigan, everything mirrors up with that run game that they love to do. Completing over 75% of his passes, taking care of the football, the most important thing at the quarterback position. So J.J. McCarthy for Michigan. Now, for the Penn State Nittany Lions, it's the ability to get to the quarterback. They're second right now, I think, in college football in sacking the quarterback with 38. Top Robinson, who's missed the last few weeks, he's coming back today. But most importantly, when it comes to this football game, you're talking about a Michigan Wolverine football team that after they heard that their coach was going to be suspended, all they tweeted was the word bet. B-E-T. And if you're Penn State, you look at how you gave up 400 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground last year. Both of these teams are going to be motivated. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be on the airplane, but I'm going to be tuned in to this matchup right here.
Yeah, it's going to be a very good one. Let's talk a little bit more about Drew Allard and that offense. They're the 6th worst in FBS when it comes to plays over 20 yards. Where can they find success today?
Christine, today is going to have to be the day. Like we had this conversation with them when they were playing against Ohio State. They've got to make big plays. They got to find a way to do it. They did not do that against Ohio State. Drew Allard, he's got to grow up today.
That's right.
Today's got to be the day. And here's the thing too, that is sort of to their advantage as well. Michigan is also not a big play team, right? In which you don't think of that when you see a team like them with a quarterback like a J.J. McCarthy, with the running backs that they've got in Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. But they are also not great at creating big plays. So this sort of matchup still works out for them. Play good defense. They don't turn the football over. But today has to be the day. You have to figure out how to make those big plays happen. And if they can do that, they've got a shot. But HD, we talked about this last night. This Michigan team didn't really need juice to come into this one and feel good about their chances against Penn State. Because I think after what we saw against Ohio State, I don't think anybody left that game feeling like, oh, well, you know what? Penn State's one of the 5 or 10 best teams in the country. I don't think any of us felt that way. Now that you've given them this extra juice, they're going to go out there looking for blood.
It's important for Penn State's defense because Michigan loves to motion and shift, give you a lot of eye candy. Read your keys, stay locked in.
All right. right, that'll be a very interesting matchup. High stakes for the Wolverines, by the way. ESPN Analytics gives them a 70% chance to make the CFP with a win today. Just an 18% chance if they take an L. So that'll be very interesting. Let's talk about another game that kind of has playoff implications as well. Utah taking on Washington. It's a top 20 matchup out west. Another big test for number 5 Washington. The Utes are 3-2 against AP top 5 teams since 2011. The Huskies have looked vulnerable recently. HD, what do you think the path is for an upset for Utah?
I think it's simple for me. You look at the Utah defense, it's physicality, right? Do not give up the explosive plays. Don't make the mistake that Oregon did and allow them to have the one-on-one matchups outside. Michael Penix Jr. methodically work football down the field, 10, 11, 12-play drives versus 1, 2, 3-play drives. I think that's the recipe for Utah today. Physicality. You're talking about a team that likes to, play on the home run.
Yep.
If you're physical with them, I think you'll be okay if you're Utah.
I think the recipe for this one is real simple. We know the Utah defense is good, right? And that has served them well all season. Got to get a couple of turnovers this game, maybe a defensive score. I think you got to be solid on special teams as well. I think it's easy to overlook that, obviously. But to me, I think this is a great opportunity for this Utah offense because this Washington defense, not only are they not really great at anything, they're not very disruptive, right? So you're going up against a quarterback that's going to be able to sort of take his time to go through his progressions and really try to make this offense work. So I don't want to say that they will be able to keep up with them offensively because if they get into a track meet, we saw what they looked like against Oregon. That's no good. But if they look closer to what they did last week against Arizona State, then we're talking about something different here. So as long as that Utah offense is able to make something happen against a Washington defense that is not very disruptive, I think they have a shot. As
I mentioned, huge playoff implications specifically for Washington in this weekend. They're 9-0 for the first time since 2016. They haven't started 10-0 since their 1991 perfect season. Obviously, if they take an L, it could be bad for them in the future. All right, time now for Fansville Advantage, presented by Dr. Pepper. We're going to look ahead to next week and see who has the advantage. In this, we're going to talk about Washington as they head to Corvallis to take on Oregon State. HD, what has made the Beavers a sneaky good team the last few weeks?
Number one, I'm going to say their head coach, Jonathan Smith, and culture matters. Culture is everything when it comes to a program and building. And I think things really started to turn around in 2022 for this football team. And I think Jonathan Smith is at the head of everything because he is the head man. He's over the program. But this culture that he's been able to beat. And last but not least, I would say this. We all know it's about the Jimmies and Joes, right? It's all about those players on the football field. Well, they have some at Oregon State. And they're looking to still contend. Like, some things got to happen, but they're looking to still contend for the Pac-12 championship.
Okay, so let's talk about the Huskies and the fact that on the road this season, they've had some pretty close games. So what can Oregon State do to make this a really close one for the Huskies when they go to Corvallis?
Hey, honestly, I think you're going to see a lot of help from this crowd. This is a pretty complete Oregon State football team. I think at this point in the season, it's been easy for us to sort of forget what we were talking about early on in the season. Oregon State is one of the 2 teams that got left out of the Pac-12, or did not get a landing spot, rather. And so you're looking at a team, they only have so many games left to do this. Bringing up, if this Washington team goes into this game undefeated and they have a chance to spoil their party, you telling me them fans in the orange and black are not going to be the loudest stadium next week?
Yeah, that'll be wild.
I really think they might, and that does make a difference, HJ, as you very well know.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. I would love for DJ Uiagalelei to ruin some of his chances at the CFP.
I heard that's your cousin.
Anyways, okay, so we talked about the matchups that we're most looking forward to this week. Let's take a look at some other matchups that are happening across the college football world this Saturday, starting with Tennessee at Missouri. That game is at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. The Vols have scored 60-plus the last 2 seasons against Mizzou, just a 1-point favorite this afternoon. HG, what are you looking at in this one?
Hey, the running backs of Tennessee, right? Jalen Wright, Jabari Small. This is a top excuse me. This is a top 5 rushing team in college football right now. And then when I'm looking at, Missouri, can Brady Cook, can he be that guy? Last week he had 2 late turnovers, cannot have that this week.
All right, let's go to the Big 12. Ollie Gordon and the Cowboys coming off their big upset of Oklahoma last week. That's Oklahoma State, just a 3-point favorite against 4-5 UCF today. What are you looking at this one, Lyles?
Hey, so this is a tricky one. First off, this is UCF Space Game. It's lit. You need to check that out if you haven't already. But look, Ollie Gordon has a chance to absolutely go off because this run defense by UCF is atrocious, okay? However, still think they're going to be in the game. This one is at UCF at the Bounce House, one of the loudest stadiums in the country. When John Rice Plumlee is on, this UCF team is extremely dangerous. They've got some good weapons. Oklahoma State cannot sleep on them today.
All right, let's go out to the Pac-12. We got USC at Oregon. Things don't get easier for USC after their loss to Washington last week. Oregon, a 3-score favorite in this one, HD.
Well, I'll be disappointed if Oregon can't rest for 400 yards today, to be honest. And if you're USC, what kind of pride do you have as a program to defend the run, to actually play defense?
Right.
Are you going to be able to do it today? I don't think so. So looking forward to seeing how many total yards Oregon is going to put up and how many points Oregon is going to be able to score versus that USC non-existent defense.
With their non-existent Alex Grinch. All right, let's go over to the ACC for a matchup that we're all very excited about. We got Miami in good old Tallahassee to take on Florida State. That's at 3:30 p.m. on ABC.
Christine,
Number 4
did you go to Miami?
looking to make it 10-0 against Miami, which is atrocious. What are you looking at in this one?
Christine, your boy. Speaking of your boy, Tyler Van Dyke has got to play better football. My goodness gracious, brother. 0 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, averaging 168 yards per game the last 2 games. He has got to show up. Look, Miami has enough. Can they make it happen in this game? Yes, they absolutely could. In fact, 17 of the last 24 of these games have been decided by a possession or less. So, for as bad as Miami has looked, I don't want to say they don't have a shot, but those receivers, Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, are back. We'll see how that one goes.
Are you cheesy?
I am cheesy.
How cheesy?
Super cheesy.
How much do you love Cheez-Its?
I love cheesy.
How much? How much? How much again? That's what I'm talking about, baby. It is now time to honor the fan filling the cheesiest with the cheesiest chain. Reserved for college football, most passionate fans, the ones who show up on Saturdays filling the cheesiest. I am here with my man Hampton. Hampton is he's an Ole Miss fan, I should say. Hampton, what time did you get here this morning?
I got here at like 2 a.m.
2 a.m.?
Yeah.
So what were you doing from 2 a.m. up until this point?
Standing.
Standing?
Yeah.
Now, I also noticed you and your friends, y'all decided to go shirtless.
Why not?
What was the idea behind
Why
that?
not?
Why not?
Why not?
Because it's cold and it's raining out, man. And I like your attitude, Hampton. Now,
why not?
What you have done, you've won a replica chain just like mine. Make sure you rock this all day.
All day.
During this show, during the football game. And listen, I'm a Cheez-It fan. You love Cheez-It too?
I love Jesus.
How bad?
Really bad.
Show me.
Love Jesus.
Yell as loud as you can.
I love Jesus.
You love it?
I love it.
Are you feeling the cheesiest?
I'm feeling cheesy.
Are y'all feeling the cheesiest?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Back to you,
Sorry,
Christine.
Mom. Yeah, sorry, Mom.
Back to you, Christine.
It's the kind of atmosphere you look for. Night, college game day atmosphere. It's what you prepare for.
Georgia's two-time national champ for a reason.
We'll get the opposing team's best each and every week, but they're going to get our best as well. We still remain hungry.
We know they have good players, but we have good players as well. Not going in there scared.
It takes a lot to be able to go back-to-back, but it's not something that we look at all the time. We got to focus on what's important now.
It must be calm in the storm. We know we're going to a place that's going to be loud and rowdy. Whenever that clock is 0, we'll see who the better team is.
We now welcome in our very own Stanford Steve to the nice rainy. You know, it's nice. It's nice and I don't know what you would call this.
Nothing.
Balmy.
Nothing's good.
It's a beautiful day here in Athens, Georgia.
Somebody said in the room before too. Like,
yeah, it's fine.
The idea how much better warm weather is than cold, and then you're getting cold, and then you realize it.
Yeah.
Simplest things.
Thank you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the story that everybody's been talking about all week, the last few weeks when it comes to Michigan. It's Michigan versus everybody. We found out a lot this week when it comes to that saga. What is your reaction to everything that's been going on?
I just had a problem with the timing of it all. Yeah. You know, like, as a player, you know, you get your weekly itinerary last Sunday. You know exactly what time your plane is, when you're going to take on a road game, right? And the idea that no one from the office knew and they waited for them to be in the air when they're doing, like, everybody's waiting for this decision. So the timing, I thought, was kind of BS. You know, you got to be buttoned up. I get it. Michigan waited another, extended a day for their appeal on everything. But the timing and letting them get on the plane and go and not know, that's what it is. And, that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a monumental decision, and then you let the timing like that happen.
Right. It's been very rough, I would imagine, for those players. And as you mentioned, they were on the plane, on the way to Happy Valley. Now they have a game in about 3 hours. Yep. They might not have their coach. How do you think that this impacts the play on the field?
Well, they've had experience. That's the crazy thing. It's like, they're probably good. Like, all right, just like the first 3 games.
Right.
Okay, it's a road game at Penn State. But the logistics of it and who's making decisions, that's already, I'm sure they were bracing for a harsh penalty like they got. And then you factor in the beginning of the season. So they already know what they're getting into. The issue I have is when you go on the road now, you haven't been in this kind of environment. Everybody, the whole season, everybody made fun of Georgia's schedule before the season started, how easy it was. Michigan's is worse.
Right.
111th in strength of schedule. Now, factor that in. Of course, they're going to be number 1 in game control when you look at the metrics, But according to FBI, Rutgers is the highest ranked team. They played 44. So that alone, and then I look at the other side with Penn State, I think you're going to see a different Penn State. But James Franklin can't come out with the same conservative game plan that he had in Columbus. The fan base will not, it's going to get too loud. So I think Penn State's a dangerous squad because he could try some things on offense knowing that he has an elite defense.
Yeah, speaking of trying things on offense, one of the big storylines of this Georgia team has been the absence of Brock Bowers. What have you seen out of this offense and how they've sort of adapted with the absence of him?
I see Carson Beck get better and better. I mean, I go back to that road game at Auburn. I know Auburn's not a good football team, but still, you're trailing on the road in an SEC environment, and all right, give me the ball.
Yep.
And he did have Brock Bowers in that game, but he's matured, and he's been fantastic. Last week, I thought he was great. 16 touchdowns, only 4 picks on the year. That's one of, when you get a new starter, that's usually half the battle is turning the ball over. So I think it's Carson Beck that's led this team.
This is a very, very big matchup today, especially when you talk about the college football playoffs.
Yep.
You look at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin hasn't been able to win the big game. If they are to win today, what must they do in their opinion?
Their defense has to show up because I don't think they could go score for score with Georgia, and that's the problem. That's why I like the matchup for Georgia, because when you look at Ole Miss's defense, I mean, they're 11th in the conference in yards per game given up, and then you look at what A&M did with a backup quarterback and without their best receiver last week. A&M went up and down the field on this team, and now you look at Georgia getting Mims back at left tackle. He's a first-round top 10 pick, and then it sounds like Bowers is going to be back. I just worry about. I love Lane Kiffin, the sophistication he has with the run game, with different pulls and stuff. They're going to score. I just worry that they're not going to be able to score enough with Georgia.
All right, Steve. Thank you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. I do want to mention also, I listened to the College GameDay pod.
Yep.
Steve, 16 games over 500. Just
there
so
is
you guys
a place
know.
where I'm picking games well.
So if you want somebody to pick your games, it needs to be this guy for sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
He got that.
I'm trying out here. No matter what the elements are.
There's a big game here today. Take a listen to this.
We run a pretty unique offense that neutralizes super elite defensive talent.
It's the package of what they do, everything together, not one thing that complements each other.
Ole Miss is very, very physical, very explosive. They like to play the game how it should be played.
You come to a place like Georgia, play at a high level, play against the best players in the country. So whenever you get the opportunity, you always want to make the most of it.
The biggest thing is going to be able to swarm and make sure everybody run for one another, no respect. There's one person making tackles.
A lot of great players on their defense. They do a bunch of movement. As a whole, they're very smart.
They have really great D-linemen, but I think what separates them is that they also have a great back end.
Very disciplined and sound team is the best way to describe it. They're also very talented and athletic as well.
All right, Okay, wait, guys, we're going to play a little game called Gimmie A Number. We've done this before.
Yep.
All the way in Colorado, actually. It's been a minute. So I'm going to give you guys a number.
Yeah, they done some losers
what that number means, all right? Very simple. The first number is number 23. All right, that's a percentage chance that an 11-1 Ole Miss makes the playoff. What level of chaos needs to happen for Ole Miss to make it?
Well, I would think number one, they don't own the head-to-head battle against Alabama. So they would need Alabama, I would think, to lose another football game. They would have to win this game today and win out, but they would have to hope and pray. And it's kind of weird because when you talk about SEC football, you don't want to root for anybody else, but you need Alabama to lose another game because they beat you head-to-head.
And they would have to lose to Kentucky today.
Yep.
They're not losing to Kentucky today.
No.
That's the level of chaos. I do also want to shout out our fans that are holding up our numbers right now. It's rainy.
Troopers.
And they're doing a great job. They have their gloves on and everything. All right, the next number is 301. That's the number of yards per game that Carson Beck is throwing for. More yards per game than Caleb Williams. Does Beck, I mean, you were just talking about him a little bit ago. Does he deserve more recognition?
He deserves more recognition in his skill as a player, yes. I think a lot of people, he's basically right now, and I'm not talking about skill-wise, I'm talking about how they are discussed. He is 2021 Stetson Bennett. People did not give Stetson his due in 2021. It was not until 2022 where people are like, okay, no, like he could actually hoop, okay? Carson Beck has gotten better as the season has progressed. He's gotten those game reps. Some of the throws that he is making, if he continues to play this way, you're going to have to start discussing him as an NFL prospect. But in terms of putting up numbers, he's not Michael Penix, he's not Caleb Williams, he's not your boy Bo Nix, he's not Drake May, which is okay because all those guys are, you know, they could be top 5 picks.
Yeah.
Carson Beck could get there. He's not there quite yet, but yes, he is a better player than people have given him credit for, without question.
Put some respect on the man's name.
Respect.
All right,
with a K, not a T at the end.
Some respect on the man's name. All right, the next number is 26. That is the number of wins in a row for Georgia. That's the longest win streak since Clemson had 29 in a row in 2018-19. When does this win streak end, HD?
I think if it was to happen, the only time I think it'll be able to happen is in the SEC championship game if they match up with Bama. And I say that because of the growth of Jalen Milroe and what he's been able to do since that Texas matchup. I think the defense of Alabama, they're playing at a high level right now. Dallas Turner, also Chris Braswell, those two guys, outside linebackers rushing the quarterback. But I think if they aren't going to be facing Alabama in the SEC championship game, I think the college football playoff, and even then, it's still iffy in my opinion. Georgia is solid across the board. I have Michigan as the most complete team, and I got Georgia right underneath them as the second most complete team.
Okay, so that means that HD thinks that they're getting 27 in a row today against Ole Miss. Let's do some game picks, shall we, as we look forward to this matchup today.
Why are you stomping, Dean?
Because
you trying to stomp the yard?
That's crazy cold. And it's what? All right, so HD, you got Georgia obviously in this matchup. Lyles, what do you think?
Man, you know I got Georgia. Hey, right, I got the dogs today, right? Georgia. All right. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I got Georgia, without a doubt.
Okay, I'm going to take Georgia as well. I'm curious what the fans think in this matchup. Let's take a look.
Let's hear from our Georgia.
What do they think?
Waiting for it. Okay, HD.
Yeah.
Christine, we all take Georgia, and the fans think Georgia. What is that, 71%?
The fans are smart.
They're going to win this matchup.
Yeah.
So it'll be a very interesting one. I'm not sure. What do you think? I'm not sure what exactly the score will be, but I think it'll be a very tight one, a very good one. Obviously, as we mentioned, a very good quarterback matchup happening. It's time to say goodbye. We're going to get nice and dry indoors.
Yes.
Enjoy your college football Saturday.
Happy Veterans Day. Happy birthday, Uncle Carl. I love you.
Next week, what'd you say?
Say happy birthday to my Uncle Carl.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Uncle Carl. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching Countdown to College Game Day. Presented by Dr. Pepper. Have a wonderful college football Saturday.